105.5 WDHA here on the Jersey Magazine. I'm Jim Monahan, and my guest has actually been with us before. He was the guest on the very first show that we did on Jersey Magazine. He is the Vice President and CFO at Jaeger Sports. China McCarney, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jim. Excited and quite the honor to be the first one way back when.
And we've brought you full circle, and I have props with me today.
Oh, wow. Don't show that too close to the camera because there's hair there.
Yeah, and then some Jaeger bands, which I'm holding up to the camera. Jaeger bands are probably what the company is best known for, right?
Yeah. It's kind of become synonymous with Jaeger Sports. Everybody calls us the J Bands guys. And when I went to a camp at 12 years old, that was like the least important part of the camp was this, piece of rubber that we did at one station. It was more about the mental training, meditation, the long toss progression, obviously. But now with the, I think we're up to about 37 different variations of colors and all that stuff. We're the J Bands guys.
And the blue and orange here, I'll hold it again up to the camera, is for Jonathan Dayton High School in Union, New Jersey, where I'm the pitching coach this year. And I have to tell you, I've not only gotten the pitchers to buy into the use of the bands, we've got all the position players as well. It's really cool to see. They're lined up. We've got, 6 or 8 of them up on a fence before practice, and catchers are doing it, the pitchers, obviously, and all of the position players. It's really been cool to watch them buy into this.
Yeah. It's one of the lines of our CEO, Jim Batcher. He was an outfielder in the major leagues. And he says, when you get a full team buying into defense and arm care, it's pretty cool to have 8 weapons on defense behind a pitcher. And how many games are decided by a close play at first or a good relay or something. So yeah, it's pretty fun to watch a team take arm care and arm strength seriously and just throw missiles all over the diamond for sure.
The kids get a kick out of it because I do the band exercises with them because I have a slight tear in my rotator. And if I don't, I can't lift my arm the next day if I happen to throw with them from time to time. So they've come in just as handy for me. You mentioned meditation, and I've seen a number of coaches do this. And with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, a lot of coaches, especially at the collegiate level, have really started to buy into that. How did that come about for you guys at Jaeger?
So it came about originally, Alan Jaeger, the founder, went through a mental hardship when he was a closer in college. And it just kind of started him on this path to discover what was going on with the mind. And this is early 90s, way less information out there, way more stigma attached to it. And so he just went deep dive and started training athletes that wanted to buy into it kind of in the mid 90s. And then just tried to figure out how to apply the principles and foundations of meditation from the Far East, the monks and everything, to athletic performance, to the Western world, and how it could benefit not only athletes on the field and in their performance, but in their everyday lives, dealing with, whatever it may be. If you're in California, road rage. But
we have that here too, by the way.
Yeah, probably all over the country, but it's just crazy to see in 2022 how needed mental training is, and that pause between stimulus and response, being able to make the right decision, not respond emotionally, because if you spend time on social media and respond emotionally, you can get yourself in some pretty big trouble pretty quickly.
It's funny you mentioned social media because I saw something earlier this week that Gen Z, that generation of 25 and under, I guess down to the age of about 10, is starting to turn off electronic devices, at least for a little while, to try to connect. I was walking in the supermarket the other day with my wife. Daughter was probably 12 or 13. Mom, I'd say late 30s, early 40s, and both of them glued to their phone as they're walking down the aisle, like, hello. Yeah. Hello, could you put it down just for 30 seconds so you're not bumping into me? But I am seeing that with some kids. They finally, I think, have had enough, even if it's just a break for a short while.
Yeah, I think that's, I think at first it's very uncomfortable because we're not used to stillness and silence. I know for me, that was one of the biggest barriers with meditation, is when I'd give my brain a chance to be in silence, it would remind me of all the crap that I'd been thinking about. or needed to, what I thought I needed to think about. But once you break through, it's kind of like any training. At first when you start running, you get much more sore than you do after a year of running or lifting weights. And so it's the same thing with the mind, that there's this barrier to break through. But once you do, you just get much more comfortable and just sitting and kind of waiting. And your brain, your subconscious will bring up the stuff you need to think about, what's really important, gratitude, just what you train it to kind of look for. And so, yeah, and you get kind of addicted to that just sense of stillness, because our phones and the everyday life, that's one of my, I guess, petty things that I like to do is, like, when I go out to a restaurant or whatnot, I'll just look around and see how many people are present and how many people are talking to each other. Or, you can tell they're on a date, two people across from each other on a date, and they may have been dating for a while, but they're just, like you said, necks straight down looking at their phones. And it's like, why here? Why be here? Just, you can do that at home. You can do that anywhere. But it's good to hear, because I hadn't heard that the Gen Z is taking more time for stillness. And I think it can benefit everybody out there.
It was actually a study I saw on, I think it was CBS News, and there may in fact be something on the air on CBS News on Sunday night, May 8th. We have China McCarney with us this morning. He was actually our first guest here on the Jersey Magazine at 105.5 WDHA. Two of my three kids qualify as Gen Z. The other one is in her very early 30s. And she, the oldest, would really have to struggle to think of the house pre-computer. She could probably, I think we got our first home computer, she was maybe 4 or 5. And of course, it was a dial-up back then. The two younger kids literally do not know a world without the internet, without some kind of a high-speed in-home internet connection. So for them to turn off for a little while it's like going back to the dark ages for them, China.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was looking off into outer space there for a second, because I'm 35 and was trying to, I remember that terrible sound of the dial up and trying to get on AOL Instant Messenger to talk to girls when I was a teenager and different things. And it's just wild now how connected we are. And it's one of the things in my foundation that I kind of address the most is your relationship with technology. And we're so connected now. And it's one of the biggest blessings for business and even, for social lives if we use it the right way. But it can be the biggest weapon, a huge negative if we're not responsible and just aware of how we're using it. Because there's just, and the algorithms, if you start going to that place in terms of you're looking at negative stuff or you're looking at one side or the other politically or whatnot, it's just incredible how fast that algorithm will be like, hey, show them this, show them this, show them this. Your mind gets inundated. Yeah. And so that's one thing, especially when I talk to young kids or athletes, it's like, what's your relationship with technology? And let's make sure the habits are kind of the right way.
China McCarney, my guest here at 105.5 WDHA in the Jersey Magazine. In addition to being a vice president and CFO at Jaeger Sports, he's also the founder and CEO of Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation. Tell us how that came about.
Yeah, that came about because of my own struggles with panic attacks, anxiety, depression. While I was playing back in, the Stone Age, 2009 was my junior year, my draft year, junior year of college. And I didn't know it at the time that it was a panic attack, but I had my first panic attack, felt like a heart attack. And just kind of the weight of everything just kind of became overwhelming. And I didn't.
You were on the mound when that happened, right?
I was actually in a car when it happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Luckily, I never experienced. I experienced normal performance anxiety on the mound, but that was kind of my safe space because I had something in my hand that I could punish somebody with. And so, but yeah, so I had my first panic attack in 2009 and didn't seek help to 2015 because of the stigma, the fear of being judged, all that stuff. And so when I finally did get help 6 years after the struggles began, I just realized that I didn't want people to struggle in silence the way I had. And I wanted to shorten the gap between the problem and the solution. And I didn't really know what that meant at first. At first, I just shared my story in 2016. And then smarter people got involved and helped me with the 501c3 process. And just trying to facilitate mental health resources. I think based on the news we've seen just in the first 4 months of this year, there's just a need. There's a need in the world in general, but we've seen too many tragic stories in the world of collegiate athletics with suicide and these struggles. And so I don't know what the clear cut answer is, but I know that if we just put in effort every day, it's better than not doing anything.
I think people are talking about it more. I don't know that we are anywhere close to ending the stigma, but I do see, especially on social media, I do see more people talking about it. And May being Mental Health Awareness Month, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here. You've got a thing now called Strike Out the Stigma with Atlanta Braves pitcher Tyler Matzek. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that as you can see my big smile on my face, that's one of the blessings of technology. So in the winter, I went on Instagram like I do most days. I'll check it once just to make sure there's no DMs or whatnot. And I had a DM request from none other than Tyler Matzek. Didn't know him. And he said, I want to help. I want to help your foundation. I love what you're doing. And I didn't know too much about his story. There's been some paths that crossed because of Jaeger Sports way back when. But we talked, and he's like, look, I struggled. He had this amazing run last year, helping the Braves win the World Series. And we just started kind of brainstorming, what can we do kind of unique where it's not just he shares his story or we do. And so we came up with this initiative, Strike Out the Stigma, where he's donating $250 for every strikeout that he records in 2022. And since kind of the beginning, we got involved with the Atlanta Braves Foundation. They're matching his donation. So it's technically $500 per strikeout, which is just incredible because all the money I have, like we've talked about on the episode, I have an amazing job with Jaeger Sports. And so AAAD is all about passion and all about helping people. So 100% of those funds will go right back to providing resources. The biggest and most costly for us is providing people with free therapy. So we make the connection with somebody that needs therapy with the therapist, and then we pay the therapist directly so that all those two have to worry about is the therapy sessions, the help, the resources. And so, yeah, it's creating awesome awareness because it's the Atlanta Braves, it's Tyler Matzek, but then it's also creating an amazing source of funds where we can do some real impact and help a lot of people take that first step, which is therapy, which was my first step in 2015.
You know, and you mentioned Tyler Matzek. Now, here's a guy at the pinnacle of his professional career. And, you know, he's making good money and what have you. And I was mentioning to you an artist friend of mine before we came on the air. Her name is Lauren Taylor. She's remarkably talented, very pretty. And you look at her and you think, this is a successful woman. She's got everything going for her. What could she possibly be anxious about? What could Tyler Matzek possibly be anxious about? And I think that's a huge part of the problem is that we, I guess, go by appearances, if that's the right way to do it. And Lauren, and I had mentioned this to you off air, she posted something on Facebook Live or Instagram Live, one or the other, as she was going into a panic attack. And I had never seen anything like this. I've experienced some of my own, you know, issues with that sort of thing. I need to get out of here. I need to go to a quiet place, but I'd never experienced or seen anything like this. It's one of the bravest things that I've ever seen. And it really, at least for me, put it into perspective what anybody can go through. Doesn't matter how successful you are in life or where you are in life, whether you're a World Series champion, a radio host, a successful artist, whatever, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is if you're successful or you check off a certain number of life boxes, then your mental health will be fine. And it's like, no, we're humans. And I think the more and more of these high level athletes, entrepreneurs, and people that are sharing the same stuff that we all go through, like just because you reach a certain status from the outside doesn't mean that you've transcended humanity or mental health. Like it's still human and you're still going to struggle. And one of the things way back, like one of my first things I would harp on when I talk to people is a successful life and a mental health issue aren't separate from each other. They can correlate with one another at the same time. You can see somebody That's a professional baseball player. That's an incredible businessman that's doing something like this, an incredible artist, that are still dealing with everyday, mental health issues. And that artist, I commend her for kind of sharing and pulling back the curtain, because that's something I try to do as much as possible, is like, hey, I went to Target today and I checked out and paid for my groceries. How cool is that? That's a win. And it's like, wait, what? And
Yeah.
sometimes those little victories are everything when you've struggled to do that. And I've left multiple full carts of groceries over the years where for some reason the panic attack hits and I don't want to wait in line and I got to get to my safe comfort zone, which is in my car getting towards home. And so I think the more and more we can do that, the more we can kind of paint the picture of, doesn't matter where you're at, what you achieve, what you think, mental health is health. Just like physical health is health, mental health is health. It's something that needs to be addressed, talked about, worked on, and hopefully it becomes a year-round thing. And it's not just mental health awareness nights or mental health awareness months or whatever. It's just we realize that our brain is our biggest asset and we better start taking care of it.
China, for WDHA listeners who want to learn more about Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation, where should they go?
So first and foremost, the website. So it's AAADF.org. So Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation.org, the acronym for that. Obviously, Google is our best friend. If you just Google the foundation, you'll find it. There's our mission, what we do, our current events, all that stuff. And then on social media at AAAD Foundation. So AAADfoundation.org. And we're still small enough where I get to interact with everybody. It's so awesome. You can talk to me directly at China McCarney on all socials, but just whatever effort you put into it, you'll receive something back. And if there's questions or anything like that, you can find me for sure.
All right. And hopefully Tyler Matzek strikes a lot of guys out this year in Major League Baseball.
That's right. Absolutely.
China, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with this. Thanks for being a part of Jersey Magazine this morning.
Oh, thank you, Jim.